We have a super exciting Adtopsy today. This is an ad that has been highly acclaimed. It's won awards, and we're even going to show Cubery up here in a moment that this is, for the second quarter in a row, Australia's most memorable ad. So we're going to cut to it now. So this is Australian Retirement Trust, and we're going to look at the big blue monster.
The science of advertising.
Hey, Sue!
Bev, you're sitting on a monster.
Literally and figuratively. It's my superannuation from Australian Retirement Trust.
Australian Retirement Trust. Right.
Big, isn't it? Comes with an app.
I gotta get me one of those.
One day, I'll unleash it on the world. Maybe even Barbados. Bev, Barbados, baby!
Awaken your super with Australian Retirement Trust.
So I'm going to throw this to the neuro expert, Pete. Can you unpack this ad for us? Like, based on your insight knowledge, I know you've reviewed over 2,000 ads with deep neuro, measuring what's going on. What's your view of this asset?
Yeah, interesting ad. It's probably no surprise that it's come up as the most memorable ad, especially if you ask someone a question consciously about it. That's the most interesting part to me, and I'll explain why. So, okay, we've got a category of superannuation. So it's unlike cars or beer or hamburgers where you can show the product. You know, it's got a physical presence. Super, of course, is a service, and that makes the category really, really quite challenging to firmly link the narrative, the distinctive brand assets to the brand itself. So I'm talking about the brand itself, Australian Retirement Trust, and linking it to that great big blue monster that we see. So the big blue monster is iconic. It's really smart. It's clever. It stands out. It's unique. It's distinctive. So it pretty much ticks every box. What I would like to know, though, and this is like deep client territory, right, is that linked to Australian Retirement Trust? And that's the more important question in my mind. And in fact, you ask any marketer who's worth their weight, will tell you that it's any communication has to link to the brand.
What's your view? Is it linked or not?
Well, it's very hard. It's very hard because you've got visual cues and you've got verbal cues to branding. Like you hear those two ladies talk about Australian Retirement Trust. Now, I would look at that and go, right, is that actually specifically spoken about at the time you see the big blue monster? I'm not sure. Like it's indirectly linked. Is it directly linked? I'm not so sure. Again, we could go back and we could kind of scrub up and down the second by second analysis, of the ad itself, right? So that's an important consideration. And the first thing that I'm very conscious of is respecting all the hard work that the agency goes through, the client, the client and the agency. So let's not be disrespectful in this discussion at all. But you've got to ask yourself, when does Australian Retirement Trust get mentioned, and when and whereabouts relative to the big blue monster does that get mentioned? Because again, I started off by saying we haven't got a physical product here.
No, we don't. And I think super is really challenging.
Yeah.
And if you look at super's under a lot of scrutiny right now for how much they're spending. And especially if you're looking at some brands, including this one, they have spent a lot.
Yep.
And they're now going, what is the commercial outcome of this investment in advertising?
Yeah.
This ad, so Cubery, we're seeing Cubery here. And we're going to talk measurement post this section. I think that's going to be such an interesting topic because there's 5 different layers of measurement in my view when you're looking at memory. We're going to start it right at the top in terms of survey, which Cubery and System 1 fall into, which I'd say is base, all the way through to advanced, which would be fMRI. And I know your product with Neuro Insights, that's EEG, so it's helmets on heads measuring what's going on, where memory actually forms and doesn't form, and there's key moments.
Yep.
So from my side, I think there's 2 things. Is the ad effective, and what commercial outcome does it drive? And if I look at this as a business, Australian Retirement Trust is really interesting. They changed out their CEO towards the end of last year, and there's new leadership that's come in.
Yeah.
They actually lost 70,000 members. If we're looking at FY, I'm pretty sure it was 25.
Right.
So the business has actually declined. And so has a lot of other super funds, especially mid-tier super funds.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then you got the likes of Hub24 and NetWealth that have gained traction. So if you're looking at category entry points for a product, and this is more marketing and advertising, and they're two separate things.
They are.
And I think this is some of the challenges we're seeing. So to step back.
Okay. The ad.
The ad.
I want to get back to that.
Let's get back to the ad.
Right.
So the ad itself, I love character and I love sound. Any piece of research you read, they are the two things that typically over-index for distinctive brand assets. And there's something that you build. And I think this is the interesting thing. You show that ad once and you're probably seeing soft linkage between Big Blue Monster. Can I actually link it to brand, Australian Retirement Trust? And I think if you look at episodic memory and then semantic memory, does that actually change, Pete? As in episodic memory, one exposure. Can I link or not? No. But if I see 20 exposures, does that actually start to bridge the gap?
Okay.
What's your view?
Well, and I'm very keen to get back to the ad itself and talk about the engineering of that ad and how branding is engineered in and out of the ad, right? Look, the most precious part of episodic or semantic, if you're looking at frequency, is the first. You will, or as the great saying says, you will always remember your first. Okay? So that's important. Now, of course, the other question is what happens on second, third, fourth, and as you say, up to 20. Well, it's anyone's guess as to what the ad is, and every ad has its own unique fabric. Okay, when it comes to reach and frequency, we're talking about frequency now, so let's not mince our words. But frequency is such an intriguing thing because in this day and age of media fragmentation and the choice of which what media mix you have, and in fact how often your ad gets seen within a program, on 7plus, for example. Every ad has a different fabric, every ad has a different DNA, and every response will be different from first to second to third to fourth. So you need to be really, really careful with that. And of course, that's something you simply cannot ask someone a question about. So that's another interesting, most intriguing thing that we might pick up on another podcast itself. Okay. Now if we want to get back to the ad, the actual fabric of the ad itself. The big question is who cares if that's a memorable ad? Because it's probably a memorable ad. The most important point is, do people link it, do consumers link it to Australian Retirement Trust? That's a whole different question. And they're not linked at all. So let's not mince our words and our concepts, right? So the point is, I would say, looking at that ad and drawing on the learnings we've seen over 20 years of neuro, I wouldn't be confident in that ad.
So why is it not linked? And do you have examples of others that link really strongly?
Yeah, I do. This sounds quite granular, but the devil is in the detail when it comes to how an ad plays out. And it's interesting because we're talking about an ad conceptually and as a big picture, and so is the Cubery results. It's like the most memorable ad. We're talking about it as a whole. And as a whole, we probably remember the Big Blue Monster. That's why I say, does it link to the brand? Yeah. My view is it doesn't, and it could do a lot better. And there's a number of things that ad executionally does that's not ideal.
So what are they?
Here's the most obvious. What happens towards the end of the ad when it goes to final branding? Australian Retirement Trust is the final frame. It uses the blue
Liam, can you get that back up just in terms of some of the branding sequence? Let's just get it on screen.
If we look at the final scene, it uses big blocked non-storytelling visuals. It's got Australian Retirement Trust. Okay, There's 2 points really important here. The last frame uses the logo, right?
So tell me when we should freeze.
At the very end of the ad. And then we'll go back a second.
So we're kind of telling story here. Big Blue Monster's featuring throughout.
There.
Okay.
Okay.
So it cuts to blue screen
Yep.
and Australian
Yep.
Retirement Trust.
So that's a big block.
Yeah.
Okay, visually. And what that suggests is that is an event boundary in that story, right? And the event boundary often forces memory encoding to completely collapse and close, okay? Which means the prior story, even the prior scene, has not been successfully encoded into memory and linked to Australian Retirement Trust, okay?
Yeah.
And so if we go back a second in that execution, what you're also seeing, and here's the real devastating news, unfortunately. The big blue monster's walking away. There you go. It's walking away.
End of story.
End of story. Subconsciously, memory encoding is actually already said, oh, you're providing me with a really clear, obvious event boundary. You're walking away. It's the conclusion. So I don't need to hang around anymore.
And then you go to hero branding moment at the end, post end of story.
So
it's nearly
it's a two-barreled problem, and the problem is massive. That would be my view.
Yep.
And that would be the single most important thing to appreciate, I would say. Now, Jono, I don't say anything that I can't back up with either data or science or evidence that I've seen time and time again. And I can honestly, without even putting that ad through Neuro, say that is the most likely problematic part of the ad.
Yeah.
So that's why I ask, what do we know about brand linkage? And if the client or if anyone knows and is watching or hearing this podcast could answer that question, I'd be so intrigued. But I think you've got other data to corroborate around that as well, as you were saying
I think
earlier.
there's both, and I think this has been running now for, I think it's coming up to 3 years, so it's been really consistent for a long period of time. And I think this is like Kubery, really effective. It's so different from a super fund, so I want to acknowledge them for being brave, and MC Saatchi as well for actually creating it, because characters, they're coming back into trend, and this is a big, and it's really important. So create great characters. Because they're huge for DBAs. But it's how you actually use them becomes really important. And I think here you got a bit of boardroom brain going on in terms of big blue monster, it's big, this is my super fund. So there's an analogy there. I'm not sure it really lands.
It's a great device, JR. It really is. It's a really powerful, distinctive, unique device. Like, congratulations. It's unfortunate that that device walks away right at the money shot.
And this is where I go, it's so interesting. So they're out for pitch at the moment for creative, and the historic agency is from what I hear in publications, they're declined to actually participate in the creative pitch.
So interesting.
Which is really interesting. So it's like they've built something here, but there's a couple of missing tricks. The other thing is, if I go back to the environment where you're looking at Net Wealth and Hub24, they're actually gaining share. These guys are losing members. So there's a commercial element, product mix, marketing here. The challenge I have with this ad is I don't think the brand has given the agency everything they need to succeed. This is very much a brand play. This is a promise. There is no reason to believe the promise is true, or the promise is even really weak. What's the promise in here? We've got an app. That means nothing to me. The only thing that you're going to win me over from a brand perspective is I like the monster, and I'm anchoring that likability to the brand and some awareness. But there's no salience in there. There's no compelling reason. Why do I go with Australian Retirement Trust? So there's no promise. There's no proof. Or weak promise, no proof.
See, I thought of that slightly differently. And I'm not too sure exactly where that app and the mobile phone scene was introduced into the creative. I have a hunch that wasn't there originally. Like, if we go back 3 years, and it's been introduced as somewhat of the proof point to get on board. And maybe they have sort of category intel that says unless you can tangibly, have control of your funds or see where you are at, that it loses relevance, or so that may be an executional proof point as well. Again, where that sits relative to the big blue monster, to the two ladies articulating Australian Retirement Trust. Again, I get back to the ad and its engineering. For all of the great thinking that's gone into this, and all of the countless millions that have gone into media and creative. It's such a shame that a second or two of executional loss, like an event boundary, can mean that beautiful big blue monster is walking away from the consumer, and so it doesn't walk through the doorway to memory. Now, why am I banging on about that so much is because no matter what any ad does, it's got to walk through the doorway to memory at the point that the consumer can link it to the brand. Bottom line. So for all the planning and all the strategy and all the greatness of the big blue monster, it's got to link to ART as a minimum criteria, and then the ad can start to do its job.
But this is what you're talking about with episodic. If you make this ad hit really hard on one exposure, and you've already started that process,
that's right.
You don't need to invest $30 million to hope that you've got that brand linkage.
And that's the other point too. There's layers and layers of this debate. If you do it right the first time, you lay the foundations not on sand but on rock. And then you just keep building, and you can be far more precise and diligent and actually frugal with your funds because you've built the foundation right from the start. Just like any builder will say, don't build that house on shifting sands, guys. Don't build that ad with event boundaries in it right at the point you want to.
It's so interesting because I actually love this.
Yep.
I love so much about it. I in terms of like what I deem is quite a dry category.
Yeah.
They're doing something really different. It feels like they're just like a couple of inches away, like with their execution. If they would actually change a few of those seconds. And
I
then
agree.
And then I'd go from a business perspective or a marketing perspective. Give me something more than just being brand. Like I love brand response. So this is very heavy brand, but give me something else that I have a higher intent to want to go with you outside of just being likable or having awareness.
Yep.
And this is where we've seen it in home loan categories, insurance categories. You need to create something that is distinctive, not just assets, but product as well, that'll actually, I want to move through the sales cycle to get commercial outcome.